Hello and welcome, it's Peter here, Piotr Fisner. How you doing, guys? Hello. So, in today's episode, it's actually for the beginners who are starting with microsoldering and maybe started and struggling, okay? Because I know I didn't do it in a first attempt. It took me some practice. Other YouTubers who you can watch, they've done it the same way, just practice, yes. So I would say with you will be the same, yes, just practice. Let's switch to the microscope. We're talking about PS5 board here. Okay, this is the board which I was showing earlier on, and it has a severe damage to those two pins, so I've added those two things. It was soldered twice, not once, that's why it's a bit overheated, but it's okay. The problem only was that after replacing HDMI port, we were missing one reading and there was no picture. Game console PS5 was going into the white light mode, and when you press the power button it was going down, so I had to replace this chip. So here is the old chip, that's the old chip, yes. Panasonic as well, the same model. It's £48 on British UK eBay, and you can get cheaper ones which are not original ones. They are £36, about sometimes a bit less. But you know, if you spend that amount of money, you might end up as I did, and game console didn't start up. So I've stopped buying on AliExpress these chips. You see this small dot here? That dot is a location of the pin, and if you look at this one, I don't know if it might struggle to show, but it is as well in the same corner here. Slightly. I don't know if you can see it. Hopefully you can, because I can see it, but I know what I'm looking for. So you know, that's how it's look like at the bottom. So we've got a ground pad, and then we've got the pads here. Now, what I would like to tell you is, don't use too little flux. If you use too little flux, believe me, you'll pay for it. I'd rather use more and even have everything flooded with flux, but at least, you know, it will connect properly, especially when you're doing those small components. Like I've blown off this. I've blown off this capacitor, I've blown off this one and installed it the other way around, so the bottom is at the top, that's why it's so black and dark, and at the bottom you've got top. These solderings shouldn't be here, it's just because I was coming from this side with soldering iron to thin the surface, yes, the pads first before applying this capacitor. Then I've marked it, and then here is the last one. So you know, it's not the greatest, but if you take a meter, everything is matching. So on the top of this you will have ground match, and here is 600 odd, in the same here, ground and 600 odd. You know, it's okay, yes. But the most important part is here alignment. Not always I'm capable of aligning in the first place. You see this small dot here, the copper dot, and here as well. Oh, sorry, my camera decided to die. I don't know why. Now I fixed the issue with the, how you call it, with the light, and now this one is playing. Anyways, so as well here, yes, this wee dot here at this place and here. So if you won't align it perfectly, then what's happening is when you look at the angle, let me correct this, okay, then you wouldn't be able to match them, top with a bottom. And the same on the other side. Where it is, I'm always struggling to find it, so yeah, here as well. And then the second thing is with those, I don't know if we are able to, where are we? Here, this coil, so it's in the light. I don't know if we are capable of where I am. I'm here. Oh, that's wrong. Well, I can't show it better than I'm showing. You have to take it on trust, because it would take me too much, you know, where it is, yeah. So if you won't align them properly, then you will have a problem later on. The lighting, look, now it's better, it's off. The same if you struggle with lighting and you've got too much light, just use the light from the other angle. Yeah, just use secondary lighting like I received from one of the clients, this light. So I'm using and focusing on the side. This way you've got better lighting. The glurness is going off, because believe me, you can't see with the glurness. And then how I'm doing it, yes, with PS5, is that I like to put it on the preheater, preheat it to 160 degrees, wait for a few minutes, like not a lot of minutes, but just a few minutes. And when the board is hot, of course I have to remove the battery, yes, because there is CR2032 battery. So I'm removing the battery, and then I'm heating from the top. Okay, I'm heating with a gun, and I've got this one taken off. I don't move a lot, you know, like I try to be more calm. And as you see, if you move it too much, you will wipe those small components. And these are really tiny ones, so if you're gonna do it, you have to correct it, yes. So first, if you don't have a preheater, you can still do it. It is more hassle and it is harder, especially for the beginner. Then later, if you've got a lot of practice, it's easier. But to be true, I still prefer to do it with a preheater, because I'm using less heat. I don't need to use full power or like 450, I can use less heat. And then this chip is, this IC is more secure because it wasn't heated to such extreme level, yes. When you buy these chips, actually there is quite often written on AliExpress, not on eBay, but on AliExpress, it's written the range of the temp. So if we were using unleaded solder, these temperatures shouldn't reach 450 straight, you know, straight hotness. So that's why sometimes you're replacing a chip without preheater, and either the chip was faulty, or you might be wondering that you've burned it because you've used 450 degrees on it, yes. And if you won't use 450 degrees Celsius, then what's happening is you're looking at the board and this doesn't want to move. You take in 300 degrees, it doesn't want to move. Why? Because the heat is absorbed by the board. So at the end of the day, either use 450 degrees at least, or use a preheater, yes, and use lower temp. Then it's up to your comfort level, yes. And practice makes master. You have to go and you have to do it. A preheater is about 100 quid, and good microscope is about 100 quid. So if you want to do microsoldering on the proper level, you need to have these two devices eventually. Yes, I'm not saying straight at the start you need them. No, that would be a lie. But eventually you will need them, yes, to make your life just easier. Because buying cheap microscope, it's a no-go. I'll move the mic, because I'll move the camera to show you my one if you haven't seen it. So if you use headphones, watch out, okay? So this type of microscope you can buy for about £100. I know, cause one of the people who are learning at the moment, actually the guy who gave me this one last year, he's learning now microsoldering. He got my hot air station, and he placed an order on AliExpress for about 90 odd quid for the microscope, similar to my one as well. And you know, he's willing to learn microsoldering, yes, so you know, it's a learning curve as well. But I would be more than happy to give him microsoldering jobs, and I can focus on other things. I'm not taking even all contracts, which I could, you know, so I can get more customers and pretty much make more work this way. Fingers crossed he's gonna learn. So what else I can tell you about the microsoldering? Okay, those small components, those tiny components, we will talk last, but let's go back to this bigger chip, yes, the HDMI encoder chip. So what it is, you should be able to use your tweezers. I've got different tweezers, but if I those are two types of tweezers, okay? Now these, if you will keep at the heat all the time, you will see that they are burning your fingers. These my wife bought, yes, and they've got a wooden nice accent here. This is why they are not burning. But I'm still doing these. I'm still using these, and I'm not burning myself. So it is a practice, yes. This one is better when you wanna grab this chip flat. That's when it's better. Yes, you should be able to comfortably catch it and place it. Now, if you catch it too deep, you won't be able to put it over there too deep. Yes, so yes, you can still grab with these ones, of course, don't get me wrong. Yes, you can still grab with these ones, but it's more likely that you're gonna end up with tweezer above the component level here. So that's why these ones are nice, because you can then catch on the level of the component and place it, let it go just above. You still need to correct it, you still need to press it and let go, and you shouldn't put too much solder on the pads, because if you put too much solder, it has to go out, and if there's not a lot of enough flux on it, then what's happening is that this solder is going out and can't squeeze well enough, and it stays over there, and then you've got shorts, and this doesn't work, and then it's your fault, and then you will gonna correct it, and you're gonna use heat again on that component. So don't use too much. It's a practice again. Look how much it was, compare it, and try to not pour more than that. If you did, take it off with a wick. And if you don't have T12, you will be struggling again. I paid 20 quid, about 22 maybe or something, as a DIY T12 soldering station. I soldered it myself, and I'm a happy chappy, because I've spent 20 odd quid rather than buying some mechanic or Sugon or some other, you know, dear, over 100 pounds soldering station. And it was super cheap. I meant to buy something for about 40 quid, like this one, Quick, or some other weird name from AliExpress. But guess what? I bought it, and it was DIY, had no power supply, but I'm using my bench power supply. And why I didn't want as well, because I planned to build solar panels, and when I will have now, because I've got about 1 kilowatt solar panels donated from my customer, I will be using them and the battery to use for these devices, because the scope has 12 volts, the soldering iron has 12 volts, you know, and I will be able to use these voltages rather than transformers or power supplies. So depend on you, yes. But okay, let's go back. So yes, so when you heat it up, you need to see that the solder is shiny, yes, when you're heating the surface. Now, when the surface is shiny, then you should still wait a bit. You shouldn't, don't touch this component as soon as you see it shiny. Wait a bit longer, because the heat dissipation need to be enough, and at the first start it's still not enough. It's still a bit less than it should be. But instead, take the component, get it closer to the heat surface where you're heating the surface, and keep it there so that it will become hot. And then when you put it or drop it on that spot, it will be easier for you to move it because it will be all liquid rather than stable. So then correcting it, it's much easier. And keep in mind which hand you are using in your day-to-day life, yes, because if you prefer to use your right hand, don't try in the first attempt with your left hand grabbing the component, because you will feel awkward, stress out maybe even, and you won't like it. Better focus on your better hand, so keep it in mind to use your better hand, okay? And then heat up with the left hand and drop off the component. I prefer to use a scope to align the component. So even if I'm using preheater, I'm still using microscope, because most of the time I've got it in the first attempt. Not always, but I got it most of the time in the first attempt, like here it was, yes? So even if I would have to correct it, you know, I won't heat it for so long if I've done it right the first place. And when you drop it, you should be able to press it and let go and wait, and then after some time you should be able to poke it and it will be wobbling, as long as it's quite okay, because keep in mind there is like 20 pads on each side, so if it's too much off it might wobble, but it will be wrong. So as long as it's accurate, it should align itself, tilt it permanently to the proper position. Okay, so that's it. And then those small components, okay? What else I can tell? And you can add a bit more of a flux on that time if you don't see a lot of flux, so it even helps with this movement. Now about those small components, before we will disconnect, what I can tell you is, one, if the component has been blown off, put flux on it, use your iron, heat enough, so minimum 300 degrees on my T12, but on your one might be different. Full power if you've got those regular manual ones, which I had, for like 6 pounds or something, 60 watts ones. Don't use less than 60 watts, believe me. And put some solder on those two pads, like resistor or capacitor. Yes, put solder, so it will be blob of solder. Then let go. Do all of them like that. Once they are done, this tweezer again is better, because you can grab flat this component on the long side and grab it now. If you are right-handed, I prefer to grab component with my left hand, yes? And again, this component should be slightly below, if possible, of the surface, so that these are not on the ground, but a bit, a bit over. It's impossible to practice it just at first attempt, but just keep it in mind that it's the best way. And then don't let go. Just keep it there and use your iron. You've got more stable, let's say right hand like I do, and then add this one to the component. If there was enough of the solder, you don't have to have even solder on this one, but make sure you've got flux over there. And then when you add it, keep it, and then after some time just let go. It should be able to melt and it should be able to hold. You might take few attempts, you might add more flux, you might add more solder, but when you see brownish or blackish surface on it, that means it's burnt flux, and don't try to continue. Clean everything off with IPA, okay? And make sure to apply new flux, if have to new solder, and then start all over. If you will be doing it with this blackness or brownness, it won't connect properly the way it should be. Yes, so that's all I wanted to say in this video, 20-minute video. Hope you've got a value. I don't know, maybe I'll do some recording, you know, but it's my experience. I'd rather tell you like I explained now, because you can take everything into the consideration, rather than, you know, like I will tell you and show you and you will be doing and you will be struggling anyway. Yes, so that's why I wanted to explain you the procedure. Hopefully you've got value out of it, and thank you for watching. If you did like, here's likes to use. Thank you guys, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.